If you are new around here, Natasha Nichols, I am the founder of the We Sow We Grow project, and I am the urban farmer in charge of the current urban farm that we have on the city of Chicago's far south side in West Pullman. I'm coming to terms with the term influencer. I started my blog, House Full of Nickels, in 2010. It was a way for me to share lessons learned from being the parents of multiples. That's still what I do to bring money in. And then it morphed to partnerships with brands and programs like the Illinois Farm Families program.
Illinois Farm Families is a consumer engagement effort with many advocacy organizations from agriculture, not just Illinois Farm Bureau, but many of the commodity associations, all working to help connect those urban communities with agriculture and an understanding of what agriculture looks like in Illinois.
I became active in the Cook County Farm Bureau after an experience with the Illinois Farm Families program, where I served as a city mom, and I started that in 2012. The City Mom program was Illinois Farm Families' attempt to get city moms out onto rural farms, trying to share understanding of food production at a time when the press was really, really negative about food and organics versus conventional, and they really wanted to give mothers an opportunity to see for themselves and make their own judgments, and then hopefully share the word on what they were actually seeing.
And that has led to long-term relationships that really have changed communication about rural and urban communities between each other.
When you see corn on television shows or cartoons, God forbid, they always have like 7 or 8 or like 9 ears. So it's always 1 to 2. We were touring the Jeske farm, and they were growing field corn. And I remember asking if sweet corn could be grown in Chicago, because it's Chicago. And then he looked at me and said, why not? It's the same type of environment. Try it out. And that was the first thing that I planted. So when we moved here, we completed a garden, and as I was growing, I was sharing online. And more people started asking questions, which meant that I had to research more, and I liked it. So we decided to take this vacant piece of land that we are now on and turn it into a community garden. With the city of Chicago, land access is a huge ordeal, and our issue is we are surrounded by empty lots, right? But there's so much red tape within the city, or so many rules that have to be followed and so many steps that have to be taken before you can actually get that land, that it is often maybe 10 years before you can see your vision come to fruition.
You have nosy neighbors, you have people calling to complain. It is super easy in the city to call and be like, I don't like this, like make this stop. And so there's just a whole other host of issues that they have to deal with. And then in the last 10 years especially, the visibility of urban ag has increased from community gardens in vacant lots. For a while, the city had a program you could buy or lease a lot for $1 or something.
It's nice, I think, to see the light turn on behind eyes, and for people to get it and then bring back proof that they got it. And then you feel good because you helped someone kind of understand something a little bit deeper.
What's fascinating about agriculture and farming is that I think we forget there can be a place for everyone at it. It can be you simply learning because you're really interested in gardening and you start out with an herb, or you went on a tour and you saw something magical. Or it can be that you went and had an education, or you had a family background. But what we're seeing is that the work and employment opportunities in agriculture vary vastly. This can be working for companies that are advocating for it. It's working for organizations that are selling seed or technology, to starting that community garden that really helps feed the world. And it doesn't matter where you come from, there's a home for you in agriculture.
Up on a small corn and soybean operation in Alhambra, Illinois. Going back home to my family farm wasn't something that I anticipated. It's still not something that I really anticipate. It's not a large enough farm for multiple people to make a life out of. I think the biggest challenge for young farmers in the future is access to land and access to money. It's not an it's not an easy career to start. The investment in land and the financial hurdles that go along with that are very large. So Shane and I, when we moved in together, when we got married, we began searching the real estate market. Shane very much needs a shed to work on whatever Shane desires to work on. So Shane sends me this real estate listing, and it's for this property. And since this house was built, this 21 acres has always been a Christmas tree farm. So we put an ad on Facebook Marketplace and said, hey, we just bought this Christmas tree farm. We aren't going to continue Christmas trees. We'd like to maybe fence it in and get some animals or some livestock, and come get a tree for $25. So we were open the weekend after Thanksgiving, and selling trees was fun. Shane kind of turns to me and says, what if we just started planting trees? Like, what if we kept doing it? And there are not that many Christmas tree farms around anymore. I know of 2 that have closed in the past 3 years that we have had this property. So people are still looking for a place to buy a real Christmas tree. I think that's a really cool thing as a Christmas tree farmer, to be a part of those family memories and a part of the community, even if it is a seasonal aspect.
Agritourism is about community. It is about connecting with those that are in your area both day and night, educating them about what agriculture is, driving a place to gather and build and create something that you wouldn't have if you didn't have a location that comes together. And we're seeing this in urban and rural communities, and we're seeing people come across the state to drive that.
We're all doing work to better the economy and our neighborhoods and our communities. We're not just doing this because it's a feel-good project at all. Lots of blood, sweat, and tears have gone into this farm, and I'm sure the same can be said about the farms that people visit.
I think in my experience, seeing rural and urban farmers, the passion that they bring to their work is similar.
With the chickens, it's more about having an icebreaker and a conversation starter.
We've talked about pumpkins. We've talked about maybe being a harvest host for RVers.
And we have our top hen Snickers, who is our dark Brahma, who's just as tough as the urban farmer that takes care of her. She fought off a raccoon while we were waiting for the coop to be built.
I think it's been really cool to grow with this property, and I don't think we're done dreaming of what it could be.
It's hard, it's dirty.
I was approximately 37 weeks pregnant when we planted 300 Christmas trees that weekend in April.
We could finish out that row. Hi.
Three years, 3 months. I probably spent a lot more time mixing our root compound and driving around on the gator, making sure that people had water and food, rather than physically planting the trees this year.
Other people don't understand it.
We have 40 beds right now. We're also using a method called hugelkultur, which is a Swedish method of growing food where you use old logs and tree branches and leaves and all of that other stuff. This also holds on to moisture a lot better, so we don't have to water as much, because we're watering from our own spigot, and it gets expensive.
I think with urban farming, there's frequently multiple goals. It's not just growing the food. It might be beautification of a neighborhood, helping your neighbors literally have food. It is education.
We are not here to shame the way that people grow. We're not here to shame what people grow. We're not here to shame the supplies that they use. We're here to educate, and we're here to teach people how to use all supplies properly. For me, growing up, learning was always fun. I was that kid in school. But school was a place where the sky was the limit for me. And no matter what I wanted to do, it was always possible there. And we want people to come on the farm and see things that are happening, and think that their backyard or their back porch or their basement, if they want to do aquaponics or hydroponics, the sky is the limit for them. Like I didn't grow up in a farming family, and I didn't attend college for an ag background, and I'm having a blast.
I'm the director of University Farms here at the university. Basically, that means that I oversee all the operations of the 8 centers that make up the university farms. Our main goal here at SIU is to try to attract those non-traditional ag students to agriculture. The ag industry doesn't have enough rural kids to fill all their needs. The demand actually right now outstrips the graduation rate. Everybody gets a job. I wish it was like that when I was here. So I've seen in a lot of things when they talk about curriculum here at the university and core curriculum, and it always flabbergasted me that core curriculum like art appreciation, music appreciation, why not food appreciation? I think especially when we see after COVID and the food insecurities these folks had in these urban areas, there's a bigger interest now about where's my food coming from, and I think they're also looking at about locally grown. That's another huge issue. So I think as a core curriculum, even in high school or in college, we might want to put agriculture in that core.
I honestly thought that all of that corn that we were passing on 55 and 57 was sweet corn, honestly. And you don't think to pull over as you see a farmer in the field and say, hey, what type of corn is it that you're growing here?
They're definitely not for human consumption. They're for animal feed or fuel. And bridging that gap, or just educating the public on what that is and why we grow it in abundance or in such large amounts, lots of acreage, it is really important. Diversification, however, gets some of those urban folks to come out to the farm and have those discussions kind of on the grower's home turf.
When people come through here and see not only corn in Chicago, but things like okra, or they see watermelon vining. We grew pumpkins here and started a mini pumpkin patch. The marvel, you can see it start.
The education component and getting folks out to the farm, I think, is really cool and really valuable. I just don't know. It's difficult to get that education component when you are a large corn and soybean, thousands of acres operation. There's not much for the general public to see and feel and do or purchase in that kind of operation.
One of our goals here in the college has been to get a more diverse representation of the state here to be involved in agriculture or be interested in agriculture. We have the horse center all the way to the sustainable farm, horticulture, the greenhouses, the beef center, the swine center, and then the Belleville Research Center and Agronomy Center. So we have a very diverse farm. We obviously have a lot of students from the Chicago metro area that go here and the St. Louis Metro East. And they make up about 25% of our students that are in agriculture. And that could be horticulture to animal science. So here at the University Farms, we have the Sustainable Farm Center. And what's very interesting about it, that is kind of our key way to reach this demographic of urban kids that we're trying to get interested in agriculture.
I think what we are seeing in universities is how do we make agriculture look different? As we know the next generation maybe sees farming in a different capacity. Programs like what SIU is doing two things. One, they're building an environment that maybe the urban students coming into a rural community haven't experienced, but they're creating community through their sustainable farming programs. But two, they're also giving a fresh face to it, that it isn't necessarily what you thought it could be. You could be getting into agriculture in so many different ways, from technology to research to building a nonprofit community garden. These are all different things that get you engaged in agriculture.
So we have an agreement with housing. We also have an Illinois EPA compost center. And so basically what happens is food waste from the housing and the student center come out here, we compost that food waste, and that compost goes back to Sustainable Farm, which we raise the vegetables to supply them at the housing, the vegetables, and what's in at the student center. But what's also fantastic is we have our own farmers market every Wednesday in the student center.
I think the hard part of farmers markets, but also a really, really strong suit of farmers markets, is that the growers that go to those are collaborative, but also they're competitors. They're all there for a common goal. When you pop up on a Saturday morning, I mean, you're gonna make friends because you have similar interests.
Everybody thinks about local foods. You often ask, they say, farmers markets are where you go. And what's interesting about Illinois is that we have one of the most number of farmers markets in the country. We're third. We have over 300 farmers markets across the state. What we see farmers markets do is build new business. Oftentimes, this is the starting place to expand into whatever is next. If that is your own farm stand, if that is going wholesale, or even brick and mortar businesses, it starts at a farmer's market.
We do flower cuttings, and you wouldn't believe how popular that is. We get students from all over campus sign up to come out to the Sustainable Farm to cut flowers and to make arrangements. And we sell a lot of cut flowers in our store. So, and I've heard of people doing that too. So another thing, you can make a lot of money in small areas. Like there's folks making $30,000 a year on a small high tunnel raising cut flowers. So that's appealing. You don't need 20,000 acres, but on your small acreage, you can produce and make an income.
I think some of these smaller farms that maybe have 2-3 children that want to move back home to the family farm, diversification is one of the best ways to do that. I think diversification is fascinating, some of the creativity that some of your traditional row crop farmers come up with. I've seen acres get set aside for flower farms. I've seen acres get set aside for greenhouses.
We've come a long way from women are, to be seen, not heard, to women are at the forefront of this, right alongside the men who are often portrayed as the farmers in general. And I think I'm loving seeing women doing a lot of what a lot of people consider unconventional farming. I don't take it for granted where I come from at all. We have roots deep in Mississippi and Tennessee and Arkansas. And my aunt, she's no longer here, and then my Granny Blackburn. They were the first representations of women growing that I saw. And my aunt, Annie Mae Upshaw, she was the first person that I saw who was a true farmer. She had all of the farm animals, she had row crops, and she let us just kind of run free on the farm. And there was nothing better for me than going and spending summers with my Granny Blackburn and shelling peas. Something that most kids will never, ever admit to liking or ever did like. But I got to spend time with her, and in spending time, I learned and didn't realize that I was learning. So, and it was just amazing, I think, being from Chicago and going down and seeing how simplistic something was, but also how intricate it was. If I guess you can think of a 7-year-old marveling over that, how you put a seed somewhere and then it grows up to be stuff that becomes a meal on the table. And that was just, I think that's always been within me, and how I found myself here in the city running a farm. It's still generational, but not in the way that I think a lot of people think of farming.
The Illinois Farm Bureau Young Leader Committee is for 18 to 35-year-olds that are interested in ag. And so I got involved with Farm Bureau from the young leader standpoint here in Henry County because a college friend asked me. A college friend said, "Hey, we're having a young leader meeting. Do you want to come?" And being familiar with the organization already, the answer was an easy yes.
They may have jobs off the farm. They may be working full-time and farming as a hobby or wanting to get back on the farm.
This is a side business or in addition to our 9 to 5.
So we work to create engagement through this. This might be doing programs like Harvest for All.
Be it local food drives or a young leader group volunteering at a larger food bank to package items for families in need, has been really cool to see everyone champion that effort for Harvest for All.
It may be having a young leader conference where your topics are a little bit different than a conventional conference and you're looking at how to diversify it. And it's about connecting with each other so that you feel like you have somewhere to belong in agriculture.
But there are still a lot of people like myself that are very passionate about agriculture, and I care about farmers and agriculture.
I do think the Farm Bureau needs to be known, and it surprised and didn't surprise me that a lot of the urban growers weren't aware of the Illinois Farm Bureau, because I've known about them since 2013. That's when I learned about them. And even then, it was baffling to me that there was this organization that kind of brought all of the farms of Illinois together.
Illinois is a very interesting state. We have large rural areas that represent agriculture being a large economic component. We have urban areas that really drive both what's happening in communities, large populations who have a very big demographic. But we're seeing a paradigm shift in agriculture as a whole, that niche and small markets is a great way for people to get back into agriculture. It's a way to connect back to the community. In the last decade, the work that Illinois Farm Bureau has done has been exponential, from helping small farmers to providing statewide conferences to working on policy and advocacy that really helps create the local markets that we're facing today, where we're looking at new programs and investment both from federal and state funding to allow sustainability in agriculture and changing business models.
I didn't realize we had a Cook County Farm Bureau until I think it was 4 years ago. That's when I found out about Cook County Farm Bureau.
We have 96 county offices throughout the state. Those drive all policy at the state level for Illinois Farm Bureau.
And now every time I travel throughout the state, I can't stop seeing them. And I have to fight the urge to go in and introduce myself so people be like, who are you?
What we are seeing is that there is a large drive for those that live in urban communities to also connect with where their food comes from. They want to build their communities through agriculture. The only way to do that is to begin farming where maybe there isn't particular space or opportunities. Because of the leading work in urban agriculture, Cook County Farm Bureau was able to connect with those growers, hear their concerns, understand the issues that they may face, and we were able to realize through other counties that that is not the only county that faces those struggles when they're looking at urban and suburban areas.
I do wish that urban growers were more aware of Cook County Farm Bureau and aware of Farm Bureau in general as a resource, as a potential ally. I think having the urban agriculture policy was a great start. It was something that we talked about a lot in our governmental affairs committee. And so we're like, let's work on this one, this like urban agriculture, and help define what it is and communicate what it is.
We understand local and regulatory zoning in municipalities as well as counties. This could be issues with building your soil up because of your soil testing and the costs that are related to that. Your water access varies depending on where you live in your zoned component, and those costs can be extremely high. It's not even just about policy. Our policy says that we support that, but then your county farm bureaus are able to go advocate and connect and have conversations for you to help look at that infrastructure need and create those opportunities.
With the Cook County Board, we've recently had a resolution passed that was called Ally of Agriculture. And it was really an effort to acknowledge what farming looks like, whether it's that community garden or the large-scale greens operation, and kind of laying it out, item by item. It looks like this, it looks like this. This is what we do. And then also pointing out, this is the benefits of it. This is how you see it in your community. And really what it did was get agriculture top of mind to the board that was sitting. And so we had just passed this resolution, and then we had a new crowd of board members coming in, and it really just opened up opportunity to further explain about both agriculture in the city and Farm Bureau in Cook County and Illinois.
I think what fascinates me even more about urban agriculture is the creativity and also the fearlessness.
I came across a screenshot that I took of someone calling me a wannabe a-hole. Because I happen to grow in raised beds and my growing style is different than what. So I'm a wannabe farmer. And the conversation that surrounded that very simple statement really made it very important and sealed it for me that I wanted to be more of a steward of encouraging people who are doing the same thing in a different space.
I definitely agree that a farmer, whether you're in an urban or a rural context, is just a farmer. You have the same goals in mind. You might execute it a little bit differently. I think there is a place for everybody. You're never going to produce a ton of ethanol in a city farm. Like, that's just not going to happen, and that's something that is of value.
So Shane and I are actually in a unique position because we're both farm kids, but we definitely aren't farmers in the traditional sense. And so having the public out in the future, I hope that we can kind of help bridge that gap and talk to them a little bit more about, well, we do this, which is similar to the way that a farmer with corn and soybeans might do XYZ.
At the same time, I don't need to pay to have, salad greens shipped to me from California. That doesn't make sense. If you can grow them down the street, I'd much rather have them from there.
It is my desire ultimately to just feed everyone, because that is a right of anyone who is born. You have a right to eat.
When people think about Illinois, they automatically assume, oh, that's a corn soybean state. There are so many pumpkins in the state of Illinois. We also have horseradish, or, the neighbors have blueberries, or apple orchards, peach orchards. Southern Illinois, there's some Milo grown. It's a very diverse state.
This entire journey is never ending, and we're always going to be learning, and we're always going to be able to do just a little bit more than we were able to do the day before. And I also feed off of that. And there's nothing as great as having one of the older community members who have been here all their lives come through and say how beautiful they think whatever is going on. It pushes me so much further than just if I walled myself off from everyone.
I think that the creativity of urban growers and the diversification of some of the row crop growers is pretty awesome. I think the possibilities are just kind of endless for us.